everybody. Welcome to the Rodeo on the Horn podcast. My name is Donovan. I am here joined with my co-host, Dan. Dan, how are you doing today?
I'm just happy that I'm taking over. Obviously, Roadkill's been demoted, so it's my time now.
Yeah, and we have a guest here, obviously, at Roadkill823. His name is Ryan. Ryan, what's going on? How are we feeling today?
It's just an honor to be here on this Rodeo on the Horn podcast. First time actually. So really excited. I know Dan and Donna. We talk a lot in our group chat. So I'm excited to talk about things today. We attempted to record before. We're not, maybe we don't want to discuss what happened there, but we're here right now and we're excited. So yeah, I'm glad to be here.
Yeah. So when we did record the first time, I'm gonna discuss it. RK's audio was crap, and Dan sent me a file I've never heard of, but we're going to do this again. So let's just get right into this week in sports. There's been a lot that's gone on in the 2 weeks since we've covered the sports in our podcast, starting with the NHL actually coming out with something important for once. We're actually getting news. The season is supposed to start January 13th for the 2020-2020 run regular season. Even though it's going to start in 2021, there will be no hockey in 2020. It's really interesting considering the last time we talked, we said basically we had no idea what was going on at all in sports in general with hockey at the forefront of these things, and we finally got dates, and we know when camp's going to start. Camp's supposed to start December 31st. Everything's pretty interesting, and I think it's kind of wild that they kept everything behind closed doors until recently, till this week. I'll start with you, Dan. What are your thoughts on just the general layout of things? I know we're not going to get a full season here. I think it's something about 56 games, somewhere around there. What are your thoughts on the initial proposal, what we're hearing here?
So first of all, I haven't seen the Devils play since March, I think. So it's been literally, what is that, 9 months? Like the regular off season, what, 4 months or so? So I haven't seen the Devils. Literally feels like years. I don't even know what hockey is anymore. I'm sad, and now I'm very happy. Honestly, don't have much belief in the NHL because the NBA had this stuff on lockdown weeks ago, and it took a while for the NHL to figure it out. But hopefully, we figured it out. And divisions, I'm kind of excited for the Canadian division. That's kind of cool. The Devils are basically in the same division. We have the Bruins now and the Sabres, but I mean, whatever. In the end, still a strong division. I'm just excited. I'm shaking. I don't know what to tell you. I'm fired up for hockey. Very, very fired up.
Yeah, we had somebody, our guest this week, actually, Ryan, pointed out that when ESPN announced the initial division realignment, because I think they had the scoop very, very early on, they left the Flyers out of the East Division, which is really interesting considering the Flyers are like basically the only team that they left off this list. I don't know how they managed that, but the divisions are something along the lines of the Canadian division is all the Canadian teams. The East Division is the Bruins, Sabres, Flyers, Hurricanes, Devils, Islanders, Rangers, and Capitals, which is like a normal Metro with the Bruins and Sabres added in. The Central is the Blackhawks, Blue Jackets, Red Wings, Panthers, Predators, Penguins, Blues, and Lightning. And then the West will be the Ducks, Coyotes, Avalanche, Stars, Kings, Wild, Sharks, and Golden Knights. So I'm going to kick this one over to you, Ryan. What are your thoughts on just the whole division realignment? Obviously, because Canadian teams can't really leave Canada and all that. What are your thoughts on what they've done to try to work around these these little issues that they've had?
Yeah, this is honestly like crazy to actually think about that. There is literally a situation where the teams in Canada cannot leave Canada because of greater events that are going on in this world, and we're still going to go forward with a hockey season. But it's all very strange, obviously. But yeah, I mean, as you said, a lot of division realignment. The Blackhawks and Red Wings are back in a division together, so that's kind of awesome for like old time's sake. But I mean, it's going to be really interesting. Obviously, we're going to see those teams play each other a lot, especially the Canadian teams, since they can't leave. They're just going to be on kind of that cycle playing each other. So it's going to be really interesting. I mean, the season is going to go how it's going to go. I mean, I don't really know too much about the division realignment, how much of an impact that's really going to have, but I think it's at least good that they were able to come up with some kind of conclusion for us to get a season and get actually a date in mid-January where it's going to come back because, like you said, for a while we didn't really know. So it was definitely good news to hear that they're at least having some kind of tangible plan to come back in mid-January.
Yeah, see, my first thoughts when I saw the division realignment and all that, and I saw they were only going to play within the division, was I'm fired up solely because the Rangers do not have to go out west and play on that grueling LA trip and then play in Canada and all those disgusting games where as soon as your team is going out west, they're probably going to lose a couple games and then they'll be sluggish as hell when they come back and everything's a disaster. Whereas with this division realignment, there's not really that much travel involved, so we could see some very fresh, some of the better hockey that we've seen in regular season games in a long time. Considering it's just going to be for an example, Dan's a Devils fan. The furthest you're going to end up traveling will end up being Buffalo, which is probably no more than like an hour and a half plane ride.
Yeah, this
Which
division
is really,
especially is very, very close together. Like even in Canada, they're a bit spread out.
yeah, that is one slight issue. Obviously, when they go over the travel miles and everything, you're going to see the Canucks are going to be flying cross country quite a lot, as will teams like the Senators, which is unfortunate. However, I think Canadian teams and just NHL teams in general are happier to actually have a season, regardless of how long they have to travel. Considering I think the Canucks travel a lot anyway, it's like that they're just nestled in the top left corner of the whole like North America in general, so it's a little bit of an issue. Um, but yeah, we've actually established some NHL news, and there's still some question marks about free agency and such, like guys like Mike Hoffman on where they're going to sign. I don't think we have any idea yet, but it is nice to know that there's going to be an NHL season, and it looks like the NHL season is going to be here within a month or so, which is shocking considering, as Ryan and I have talked about many times on here, we had no idea that this was even going to happen. Like we were very, very skeptical, and I know Dan had just said earlier that he's a little bit skeptical of them actually being able to pull it off. But I think all in all, I don't know necessarily how the season's going to go, and I think this is a big worry. But I think if the NHL has NFL level COVID issues, we could see the season really have some struggle. Really, really, just not go as planned here.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, it's always just kind of like an adjust on the fly situation. Like, I know before the NFL came back, or even going back before the MLB came back, like, there was just so much uncertainty. Like, we just don't know what's going to happen until it happens. And then we'll actually see what protocols there are once things start to go wrong. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, hopefully it goes, fairly smooth and the Canadian division idea works out. But it's definitely going to go through its adversity along the way. One other thing that I wanted to bring up that I saw about like the NHL coming back was the idea of like outdoor games, and like if teams felt like it would be safer to get together on an outdoor rink than inside of like their regular stadium. So I don't know like how likely that is to end up actually happening, but I think it was kind of an interesting idea that imagine if a team played in an outdoor rink for like a majority of their home games. I think that would be kind of interesting.
The Hawks have been doing that for years. So.
Yeah, that's really not even a cap, Dan. Like the Hawks be playing in outdoor games every single year, and they get smacked in those games every year. They've only won like 2 ever. Yep. One of them was at Soldier Field against the Pens. That was a funny game. There was a lot of snow, but pretty much every other game they got absolutely destroyed in. So yeah, I mean, I don't know about the Hawks, but somebody else take the outdoor games.
Yeah, so that's nice. It's nice to have some NHL news for once. I think the NHL has been the quietest offseason that we've probably had in a long time, although it's a much shortened offseason compared to what we normally get. But I think we can move past the NHL onto the NBA. We've seen a lot of interesting NBA news in the prior week or two since we've recorded last. The first thing was John Wall being traded for Russell Westbrook, and I know we discussed this a little bit, but just to get a quick recap on your thought process on what happened there, we'll start with Ryan. What are your thoughts on the initial trade, and what do you think is going to come out of it?
Yeah, I guess initially when I heard about it, I thought it was interesting. I guess between the two of Westbrook and Harden with the Rockets, I thought Harden was going to be the first to go, and he still could go. I guess that's still kind of an ongoing situation, but I don't know. It was an interesting move. I like the ad for Washington. Honestly, I think their duo of Beal and Wall. They went through their trials. They had some, decent playoff appearances, but never really were serious contenders in the East. So at least you're trying to do something different. I still feel like they are at least one more piece away. Definitely need to add a big before they're serious contenders. But it's not like the East is that great. So I think they're going to be definitely competing. But yeah, I mean, Houston is kind of an interesting situation on the flip side. They had a first-round pick in there as well, so I guess that's decent return. But yeah, I mean, it was definitely interesting, the NBA offseason, and it seems like that's always like such an interesting storyline as well. So it seems like stars move pretty much every offseason, so it's interesting to follow.
Yeah, we had that happen, and then we had James Harden basically decide, hey, I'm not showing up for camp. it looks like he is attempting to make a trade happen, or at least attempting to get the Rockets to say, "Oh, we're sick of you. We don't want to deal with you anymore," and then make a move. And I saw that it's going to take him at least a week of coronavirus testing, where he tests negative every single day to get back at practice, which means he's essentially going to miss all of training camp, all of the preseason games, even if he does play for the Rockets, and that still seems like a bit of a question mark. Um, in general, we don't see very often in sports. And I think it's very weird to see a guy like James Harden, who has basically had his entire career, especially since he left the Thunder, be basically designed for him. Like the team is basically built around him. They do everything for him. They don't care what he does. He can do whatever he wants. And now he's at a point where he just wants to get up and get going. Whereas in other leagues, like the NHL, for example, we don't really see that very often. The MLB, it's very hard to facilitate a trade for yourself. Um, do you think, Dan, I'll start with you here, with just looking at James Harden in general, do you think that there's any reason for the Rockets to just bow down to what he wants and get rid of him, especially when his value will not be up to par as for what we would normally expect out of him in an offseason?
I feel like if any league, if you're able to do that and hold out and get a trade, it's probably the NBA because I feel like there's a lot of player power for the most part. Um, I don't even know what they'd get for James Harden because from an outsider's perspective, like I always knew Russell Westbrook was good, but clearly he's like the way he's being thrown from team to team now. Obviously, people have different ideas on him that he's not probably a star player you want to build around anymore. I could argue the same for James Harden, even though I think he's better than Westbrook. But I don't know, like, what are they even? What's the trade going to look like if they do end up trading him? Like, what are they even going to get for him? And how many teams even want him at this point? That's what I would wonder.
Yeah, especially considering you bring a good point up. Especially considering how close we are to actual season. Like the preseason starts Friday, which is tomorrow. When we're recording, so most teams are already pretty much on the cap. On the cap ceiling, at least close enough to where it'd be very hard to finesse a 40 million or whatever Harden is making right now dollar contract. Um, in general, I think the NBA has a real issue with player power. It's not a bad thing that the players have power, but it's a bad thing that the players have egos to the point where they think, "Oh, we can go. I can be sent wherever I want. I can." Obviously, when you sign a contract, you are basically saying, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna be here. I have to be here. I'm forcing myself to be here by getting paid to be here." Yada yada yada. Whereas at this point now, we're at a point where James Harden, with the season starting tomorrow, the preseason starts tomorrow. James Harden is still asking for trades, not showing up for practice. His coach is even saying he's holding out for a trade or holding out for whatever. Um, Ryan, in general here, do you think that there is a legitimate chance that James Harden is moved before the season starts?
Yeah, I mean, I think it did definitely happen. I mean, kind of going back to Dan's point, I think it just kind of depends on the return. Like what is Houston's even thought process right now? Like, do they just kind of want to like blow things up, or do they still want to compete? I don't really understand. I don't think they're like a team that's going to be competing in the Western Conference. I think their best chance at that was the last couple of years, and they were unable to get by teams like the Lakers or the Warriors when they were winning their championships. So I don't really know what the direction is for Houston. I mean, to answer your question, yeah, I mean, I definitely think Harden could get moved, but I think there's just kind of a lot of uncertainty. Houston definitely doesn't want to move him, without the right return back. So I can see why that deal could take a little bit of time to kind of come to fruition there. But I definitely think he could get moved before then. Yeah. How about you, Donnie? What do you think?
Honestly, at this point, I've thought that there's basically no chance. Just in my thought process, the Rockets have they've traded away their picks in terms of the next couple of years to really put themselves in a position where they can compete. And moving Harden would almost guarantee being a downgrade, especially if he was moved to a team like Philadelphia, which is the oft rumored team that we see all the time. They wouldn't end up trading Simmons or Embiid probably in a trade like that. I don't think that they would be willing to. They don't have any leverage at this point, the Rockets. So my thought process is James Harden is going to stay there, be very unhappy, and he's going to deal with it for the next season, next half season, see where things go. I think that in general is a big issue. And again, it's just the NBA that does this. If you do this in the NHL, if you hold out for a trade in the NHL, can't remember a time when that's happened where a player has been like, yeah, I'm just not going to play for you. Just send me somewhere else. We see it every once in a while in the NFL because again, ego clash. There's a lot of salary issues in the NFL, but I think at this point in the NBA, there's really no chance for James Harden to be moved. Just my thought process at least, and I'm sure
Yeah. I think you said an interesting point there with Philadelphia, though, because I saw that the 76ers, they hired Daryl Morey, who used to be with the Rockets, their general manager. So I think if there is a spot, it could be Philadelphia, like you said. But I definitely think you bring up a lot of reasons why Harden may stay put in Houston there.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't see it happening. But I guess with that we can move on to Ryan's favorite sport, the NFL or football in general, and we'll talk about the NFL. Week 13 has come and passed. We saw some interesting upsets in the sport, including the Steelers not being able to beat the Washington football team, uh, officially no longer undefeated, which is shocking. We also saw some interesting games like the Giants knocking off the Seahawks with Colt McCoy as their quarterback. We also saw the Patriots beat the Chargers by 45, and then now they're currently on TV getting absolutely destroyed by the Rams. Um, in general, in football, I think we've seen this year especially, there isn't necessarily a team that is considered unbeatable. There's not a favorite. If there was a favorite in the league, I would say the Chiefs are that favorite, but we've seen the Chiefs do not necessarily have that team. uh, they're not built necessarily to be the team that is completely unbeatable. No doubt, nothing around it. Whereas in years prior, especially with the Patriots were always the team to be the team to gun for. And this year, I think it's a little more wide open. We've talked about this earlier, but it's like even I'll start with Dan here. Even the Giants, they can beat good teams and they could potentially make a run. It's like at this point, maybe I don't necessarily know if they have the firepower to do it, but when the Giants are going into Seattle and beating the Seahawks with Colt McCoy as the quarterback, you have to think the NFL is really just the most wide open that it's ever been, or at least in a long time at this point.
Yeah, it's really like whacked out in general the whole league right now. Especially from my perspective, I think the Giants were what 1-4, 1-5 to start, and not that I was giving up because the division sucked, but I was like I'm moving on. I really don't even care. And then all of a sudden they win what like 4 straight games, and they're first in the NFC East. And I'm aware they're not that good still, but they're what 4 in a row. They beat the Seahawks. They're not horrible. The defense looks good for the first time how damn long. So I've enjoyed the season. I think it's been just insane. We've had what like Wednesday night football, like or Wednesday afternoon football. It's been really weird, but I'm having a great time. Honestly, it's my most fun season in a while as a Giants fan. I'm not.
Yeah, which is fair though, because we haven't seen much good football. But we can flip this over to the Eagles fan who may not be having as good of a time as he wanted to be. However, his quarterback, his knight in shining armor, it looks like he has finally taken over the starting quarterback position in Philadelphia. That being Jalen Hurts. Obviously, we've talked about this so many times. But Ryan, how does it feel that it's finally happened?
It's finally Jalen Hurts' season. He finally got his actual opportunity to make something happen in the Green Bay game. They didn't just send him out there for like 3 plays and run read option, and then he tried to back off. They actually ran some normal offense with Jalen Hurts, and he had some success. He had some nice throws in that game. He had a nice ball to Jalen Rager, had a nice touchdown to Greg Ward. So did some nice things. Did have an interception, didn't complete the comeback all the way. Obviously, Green Bay, much better team than the Eagles. Eagles have another tough opponent this Sunday. They've got the Saints, so that'll be a good game. I don't know. I'm super glad to see Jalen Hurts, obviously. But I do think there is kind of a happy medium between Jalen Hurts and Carson Wentz. I feel like there's so many people in this media that are like, man, Carson Wentz, they're just really dogging on him right now. He has not played well this year. They just want him to not play at all. They want it to be all Jalen Hurts. But I think there's a way that you can use both quarterbacks. Why can't it be that you're using Jalen Hurts for maybe 60% of the snaps and Carson Wentz for 40? Or you have send out formations where they're both out there on the field. I think it would be a good strategy. So even though Jalen Hurts is getting the start, I still would like to see Carson Wentz get some snaps. I think there is kind of a happy medium in between there. But overall, I will say very excited to see Jalen Hurts. Obviously, the Eagles are not in a position right now where, I guess they're still in the playoff hunt, but in no way, shape, or form should this team really be in the postseason. They're not going to do shit in the playoffs, even if they somehow shit out a way to win the division still. So definitely in pro player development, it was really nice to see Hurts and Jalen Rager have some a little bit of connection there. So definitely excited to see how Hurts plays in his first start on Sunday.
Yeah, I don't know. If you're looking for excitement out of anything Eagles football after this season, I think Jalen Hurts is probably the guy to at least give you some potential hope. He might not be necessarily great, but you're gonna get it's gonna be growing pains. You're gonna see it firsthand, and then you'll be able to analyze him a little bit more against NFL defenses, which is always a big win. Speaking of defenses, the New York Jets they finally had a chance to win a football game last week, and it didn't happen because of poor defensive errors that cost Greg Williams his job. I'll start with Dan here. Dan, what are your thoughts on blitzing? When all you have to do is prevent a touchdown and putting your defense in single coverage against Derek Carr, who throws one down the field 40 yards to beat you when you finally have led a football game for more than like 3 seconds. What are we thinking here?
It's probably the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my entire life. And I think that the fact that I'm pretty sure Steve, who obviously was on the podcast, he said Adam Gase was literally like talking to somebody when that happened. He didn't even pay attention to probably the last play of the game either way. They had no timeouts left. Also, the corner on Ruggs literally bit so hard on a double move when you literally had one job, which is not to allow a touchdown. The whole team as a whole from top to bottom is freaking embarrassing. And I can't believe that actually happened. Like, I genuinely cannot believe that. I'm sorry, Steve. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that was absurd, and I'm glad you brought that up, that Adam Gase was just, like, distracted on that play, Dan. Because, like, you're the head coach. Like, if you're like, man, I didn't know Greg Williams was going to call an all-out blitz, like, you got to know. You got to be in control of that situation, or at least call a timeout or something. Just an inexcusable mistake. There were some people saying that was, like, a conspiracy. Like, the Jets called that play just because they wanted Trevor Lawrence. Like, they wanted to blow that game. I don't buy that at all. I mean, what if they got the sack on the play? Like, they're sending all-out pressure. Like, they could definitely have just sacked Derek Carr, and the game's over right there. So, I mean, I guess credit to Derek Carr for making that throw, but I mean, they almost blew the play right before it. Nelson Aguilar was wide open on the play right before it, so I guess that's why some people maybe thought that, but I don't buy the conspiracy on that. But it was funny also that Greg Williams, I guess not funny for him, but he got canned the next day. Like they were like, he called that all out pressure, and then he just gets absolutely, they're like, you're not coming back, you're not working for the Jets anymore. So kind of tough for him, but at the same time, like Adam Gase, you're right, Dan, like he's definitely still at fault on this as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, see, as a fan of a team that has made these errors in the past and has given up long plays in big games, yeah, I don't think I've ever seen anything that foolish before. And it really is shocking to me that, I did see a lot of people say, oh, the Jets, they're trying to lose and everything. But you got to think, they don't want to be 0-16. That is the one thing that you just really don't want to have happen. Because obviously the Jets are going to get the number one pick. I don't think there's anybody really questioning that at this point. There's no team in my...
I would say just Jacksonville. Just Jacksonville is the only team that's close.
Even Jacksonville, though, it's like Jacksonville is bad. They're really, really bad, but they're not Jets bad. Like the Jets, literally, they don't score on offense. They don't play any defense. They don't do anything right. Their coaches are just abysmal. Everybody hates Adam Gase. Adam Gase looks like he hates himself. It's just the Jets in general are maybe the worst team I've ever watched play football through a full season. And again, if you're a Jets fan, sorry, you're really going through it right now. I can't even make fun of you because you probably make fun of yourself. But yeah, other than that, we can head towards week 14 here, which is currently underway. We have the Patriots playing the Rams. The Rams are absolutely dominating them right now. But there are some interesting games this week that do have some sort of implications for the upcoming couple of weeks and then getting the playoffs. Starting with our Giants playing the Cardinals. It could be an interesting matchup. We're not sure if Daniel Jones is going to play. It doesn't look like it, although you really never know. Dan, do you think the Colt McCoy era can go 2-0? What are we thinking here?
I'm definitely not ruling them out. And if they've taught me anything, it's that they can hang every single game this year. It seems like they were either in it or blew it late or whatever. So I think they're going to be in it. But I don't think Colt McCoy is sustainable as a quarterback if you want to be a team that wins a lot of games. So definitely need Jones to come back quickly. But you never know. I'm not ruling it out. I'm open-minded going into the game, but I don't know. They got to lose eventually, right? So that's my Giants mindset. They have to lose eventually.
So the funny thing that I saw today is the Giants have not lost a game other than the one against the 49ers where they lost by 27 by more than 10 points this year. And they don't win games by more than three or 7, somewhere around there, whether it's a field goal or a touchdown. So they're going to be in the game probably. But it makes me nervous that they're playing Kyler Murray. As we've talked about before, Kyler Murray is a different animal. Obviously, they stopped Russell Wilson, which is something that we didn't expect to happen. But I think the Cardinals' offense is a little bit different, and I'm not really sure if they have anybody that's going to go out there and stop DeAndre Hopkins. We'll get the outsider's perspective. Ryan, what are your thoughts on the Cardinals-Giants game this week? Because it has implications for both teams, of one of few games that only have implications for both teams this week.
Yeah, it definitely is a big game. Two teams that are currently in playoff spots, as crazy as that may sound. The last two playoff spots, but they're both in there. But yeah, I mean, I think Arizona is kind of a frustrating team, as much as the Giants are as well. I mean, Arizona, they've lost 3 straight games, including a loss to New England that I really don't think they should have lost that game. They beat Buffalo on a Hail Mary to DeAndre Hopkins, and then they lost before that to Miami. So they have lost 4 of the last 5, and the only game they won was on a miracle Hail Mary. So they're definitely not a team that's coming in and they're flying. They definitely have the potential to be because they have dynamic playmakers on offense. Obviously, you just mentioned DeAndre Hopkins. They've got both their running backs out there now, Edmonds and Kenyon Drake. Drake was banged up for a little bit, but there's definitely out there now. But the defense has been inconsistent, and the Giants are coming off a game where nobody expected them to beat the Seahawks going into Seattle with Colt McCoy, and they did. And obviously now they have this game at home. So it's a really good matchup. I think it's going to be definitely a close game for sure. And so, I mean, I don't know. I think I probably lean slightly towards the Giants just because of how poorly Arizona has been playing lately. But definitely could see that going either way in that matchup.
We love to see it. One more question dealing with the NFL, just in general. If you had to pick a favorite to win it all, considering we are 75% through the season now, who would it be and why? We'll start with Ryan and head off to Dan shortly after here.
All right. I mean, this is interesting. I think you could go Pittsburgh and Kansas City right at the top. Those would be, answers you could pick and have no issues. But I'm going to go with Green Bay, honestly. I think Green Bay is kind of the team that I liked at the beginning of the year to go all the way. So I guess I'll stick to it. I like what I've seen from Green Bay this year. I mean, anytime you can have Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams, they're kind of got things going on. And they still have a pretty young defense. I think their defense could be a little bit more consistent, but I could see them, kind of toughing up once playoffs start to hit. So I'm going to go with Green Bay.
Dan?
I think it's the Chiefs until someone proves me differently, pretty much. I just don't see them losing a playoff game. I mean, they'll lose a few games in regular season, but I don't know. I don't think any team's to their level.
Yeah, I think I tend to agree with you. I think if we saw a Chiefs-Packers Super Bowl, it would just be amazing because we would have potentially two of the top 3 or 4 quarterbacks in the league going up against each other, which surprisingly enough, we don't see that often. We don't see these high-level quarterback matchups as much as you would think we would, especially because Tom Brady made like 13 Super Bowls, so obviously not. But I think a Chiefs-Packers matchup would be spectacular, and I think to RK's point in general, I think just seeing Aaron Rodgers go out there and be better than maybe we've ever seen him before, obviously, maybe not better than we've ever seen him before, but as good as we've ever seen him before, is a little bit of a testament to just the Packers in general not believing in him. It probably pissed him off. I think it's something that we talked about when the Jordan Love ordeal happened, that, it was just like a little bit of a question mark here and there. But at this point, and I think RK would agree, Aaron Rodgers looks to be potentially the best he's ever been at the age of, I believe he's 37.
Yeah, he's playing great football, and he's getting a lot of help around him. I think kind of the thing that a lot of people were surprised about the Jordan Love pick is like, they were like, man, we want Aaron Rodgers to get more help. And then they took A.J. Dillon, and it really hasn't even been that. It's been a lot of Aaron Jones that's been really good, or Robert Tanyan's been good for them at tight end. Some of the younger receivers, Valdez Scantling, Allen Lazard, giving some complimentary help. Obviously, we talked about earlier about Davante Adams being the stud that he is. But the help around Rodgers has been awesome this year, and they've had a really good start to the year. So I could see them having a lot of success in the NFC. I mean, the NFC is pretty wide open. I think that obviously New Orleans is up there as well. Tampa Bay, the Rams are good. Seattle, obviously. So a lot of good teams, but I'm probably leaning Green Bay for right now.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think we can get off the NFL this week and go to our 4th major sport before we get into questions. That being the MLB, currently in a kind of a weird spot that you don't really see very often in sports in general. The MLB is quiet, but it shouldn't be quiet. It's like, obviously we have free agency going on right now and everything. And I just wanted to get your opinions on a couple free agency spots, starting with Dan's, light, his savior, DJ LeMahieu. Dan, what are your thoughts at this point on the Yankees bringing back DJ LeMahieu? Do you think that there's potential still, or do you think it's far gone at this point?
I definitely think this is the way I'll put it, right? So we're the favorites, I'd say, but if you had to put a percent on it that he's coming back, I don't think it's like over 50. It's maybe a 50-50. Like, I would take the field if I was a betting man, honest to God, because you get to free agency, you never know. I just don't see what you're waiting for. If you really think you're meant to be in this team, then I don't see what the wait is. I hope I'm wrong, but I just don't have a good feeling, because what if the Dodgers come in and shovel him a shit ton of money? You think he's going to be like, no, I don't want to go to the Dodgers? I mean, why would I would go to the Dodgers? What the hell? The Yankees, they just choke out every single season. I'll go to the champion Dodgers. So I'm not that confident. And if he doesn't come back, I'm literally my love for the Yankees is going to be like chopped in half, because he's been the best player in the team for 2 years, and I really couldn't stomach him leaving.
Do you think just in general, that there's no loyalty involved to him with the Yankees. My thought process with LeMahieu is, if he hasn't re-signed by now and they haven't got to the dollar figure that they want to right now, are the Yankees going to really switch up? Because the Yankees are not a team to just go and just give in to demands more than anything. And I think the last thing I saw was like 5 years, $100 million, and I'm pretty sure we could see another team do that. Like, I don't think that's out of the question at all.
Someone should do that, especially for us. He was such a different bat in our lineup, but we're all power, and it was so refreshing. And we're losing that one aspect, the one guy. Obviously, there's a few decent hitters that aren't just power hitters on our team, but he was the guy who he won the freaking batting title. Like, he was an amazing hitter, breath of fresh air, and that I would give him a blank check. I don't care. Like, you're the Yankees. They have so much money. Like, I don't even want to hear it. They're for how much money they make. They honestly are cheap a lot of the time. I'm gonna be honest, and people think I'll sound spoiled, and probably. But that's just my viewpoint of things.
I don't know. Honestly, Dan, like, I am one of those people that, like, oh, you sound spoiled, because they just signed Garrett Cole to that huge deal. Like,
Yeah.
they've gone out and spent money in the past.
That was the best thing they've done in a long. Like, they usually make stupid moves or get ridiculous contracts that don't make sense. That I was 100% behind, so I support them on that at least. But I don't know, man.
Yeah, I think the Yankees keeping LeMahieu at this point, I don't necessarily expect it to happen. I know Toronto's spending a lot of money too, so that's, I guess, another name. But one other thing I wanted to bring up, actually, I guess why we can continue with this MLB talk, is like, we still don't have an answer on if the NL is going to keep the DH or not. Like, they haven't said, and now there's free agents who are designated hitters like Nelson Cruz and Carlos Santana and Mitch Moreland. Like, they need a market. Like, they need to know where they can sign, and they still haven't announced if we're going to get a DH or not.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that, to be honest, in terms of free agency. And that has to be the most frustrating thing in general for guys like that who really don't play the field. Like, you're not going to see Nelson Cruz play the field very often. And but if there is a DH, you could see his market go up. You could see his dollar value probably, I don't know, maybe not double, but his dollar value will go significantly up higher. And I wouldn't be shocked. There'd be every team in the NL should be calling him up saying, "Hey, right now we need you if there is a DH." So I thought that was interesting. I was going to ask what your thoughts on guys like Marcell Ozuna, who are maybe not necessarily in Nelson Cruz's shoes. He could play the field a little bit more efficiently. But guys like Marcell Ozuna, they have been rumored to not have necessarily as big of a market as we thought, even though Ozuna is a very, very good player. And I was thinking, like, I was trying to come up with a reason as to why that was the case, and I think you may have just cracked it there and just put a light bulb off in my head. Maybe it's just because teams have no idea what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why they haven't announced something like you would think that there would be a definitive answer on that. I kind of was under the assumption, like, I thought it was going to stay. I thought, like, after they put the DH in, like, I figured that they were just like, all right, we're going to keep it in at this point. Like, but it seems like that's far from a guarantee at this point. Ozuna is an interesting situation while you brought him up. I think him going back to Atlanta, I liked his fit there, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, it does make sense, and obviously we have other free agents like George Springer, who's been rumored to go to 17 different teams, Trevor Bauer, whose agent tweets at night, "Hey, are you awake?" At certain fan bases, which is just shocking. Like, I saw the other night, he was tweeting, "Hey, Halos fans, are you awake?" talking about the Angels fans. I was like, first off, I understand, you're trying to rile people up and everything, but, that might not be the way to do it, especially because I don't think he's going to sign with the Angels. If he does, hey, power to him, enjoy rotting away in Anaheim. And then there's other guys like JT Realmuto, Justin Turner, who doesn't have COVID anymore, Masahiro Tanaka, Jock Peterson, just a couple of those names that we literally have not heard a single thing about. It's like, obviously, Charlie Morton signed with the Braves. We saw Adam Eaton sign with the White Sox. But other than that, MLB free agency is just the weirdest, most drawn-out, stupid process there is, period. It's like, I've seen NHL fans complaining, like, oh, as we've talked about Mike Hoffman, he's not going to sign, he hasn't signed anywhere yet. We said, oh, he might go to the Bruins or whatever. But we really have no idea, and there are hundreds of MLB free agents out there, like, not sure what's going on here. Nobody signed anywhere. In terms of the top 10 free agents on CBS Sports website, Marcus Stroman is the only one that signed, and he signed back with the Mets. He accepted his qualifying offer. So at this point, we really have no idea what's going on in the MLB free agency, and I think that's a point that's something that they really need to do better on, because I think in general, just drawing out the offseason, we saw last year there were a couple guys, and years prior, we've seen a couple guys that didn't sign until the season started. Like, we were midway in through the season, and I don't think that's necessarily the way to go about things. I don't think that's the best way to deal with their free agency in general.
Yeah, Dallas Keuchel was one of those guys. He came in late, and he was definitely rusty, and they were careful with him for a few weeks. I knew that excited him in fantasy, obviously. But for a few weeks, he
The best around. Champions, Dan.
Yeah, I'm not even gonna flex. That's all right. But most pitchers started very 4 or 5 innings and they got stretched over the year. It was definitely a weird year. On the MLB offseason, there's nothing I hate more in this entire world than the MLB offseason because it's so dead and it's like, oh my god, free agency is officially open and nothing's gonna happen for like 3 months and you're like, why do I even care? The NBA, I'm pretty sure is pretty good. I know the NHL, they have free agent frenzy. Like, I don't think the NFL. I mean, you could speak about this, Roadkill.
NFL is pretty good. NFL is just following Twitter though.
Yeah, but like every other sport, it's like especially at the NHL. Forgot it. It's like day one, like everyone signed already. It's
Yeah,
the
unless except for the RFAs. The RFAs
Right,
get drawn out in the
right.
NHL.
There's just hype behind it, and the MLB, it's like why do I? There's no point of even putting any
MLB
energy.
is definitely the most frustrating to follow.
It's,
no
it's
question.
very bad because you never know when they're even going to sign. It could be in 5 months.
We've discussed this in the past too. Like with leagues specifically, we actually have a question as to why we think the NHL isn't as popular as the other 4 leagues. But I think you can attribute the MLB's growth being slow or minimal or
Yeah,
non-existent
it's winter meetings
to
month.
the fact that this is just another thing that they don't handle very well. It's like free agency may draw.
Yeah,
I don't know. Like
yeah, that's the
specifically,
problem.
I don't know if there's an example there, but it's like I'm thinking there were probably more Rangers fans because Panarin signed with the Rangers and it was quick and there was a big deal about it and then they publicized it. Whereas in the MLB, it's like, oh, so a guy's gonna go sign in March when they're in spring training and then he's gonna stretch out. He's not gonna be ready. He might stink at the beginning, as we said with Keuchel, and then it's a disaster. Um, I don't know. In general, with the MLB, it always bothers me that it takes so long. Because first off, if you have a guy in free agency like Dan with LeMahieu, it's just nerve wracking in general just to know if the Yankees don't have LeMahieu next year, they will not be that good. Like they'll obviously be a very very talented team still. They have a lot of talent in general, but with guys like Judge and Stanton who are consistently injured, it gets to a point where you're really not sure. But yeah, it's nerve wracking in general, and it's annoying as hell to be an MLB fan and just sitting here day by day and you see nothing, literally nothing. It's like we still don't know what the rules are for next year. It's like our fantasy league, like what's going on here? But yeah, winter meeting months. Except there will be no winter meetings because we don't know what's going on anywhere. Period. Which is just great. But I think with that said, we can we can transition into our question this week. Obviously, Dan wanted to discuss Chelsea. He said thoughts on Chelsea's unbeaten streak, which still lives after their 1-1 draw with Krasnodar. Dan, what have you seen this year? Give me a quick synopsis of Chelsea and why you're excited about them.
On the podcast shall never be posted. You said Leeds might end the run and another 3-1 win. Just team looked great. One of the only teams to outwork Leeds.
Led. Come on.
They did. They Leeds are a good side, and I respect Leeds definitely. But the thing about Chelsea this year, the difference between last year and this year. Last year, if they went down in a game, I know they lost. I knew it was a stinker. They were losing 4-0 that game. Like, there's so many games where even it was like a close game, it was 1-1 or it was 0-0, and they score and for 15, 20 minutes, the rest of the game, they're just getting hounded. They just like drop their heads. This year, they go down. I'm so confident that they're still going to find their way back in the game, at least get a point. And they've done that many times. They're the first team to actually beat Leeds when Leeds scored first against them in like a few years, I'm pretty sure. So, I mean, I'm impressed. I'm impressed with the mentality. I think people didn't get behind the manager. Not that anyone listening even maybe there's a soccer fan out there that's gonna understand all this and they're gonna be gassed. So love the manager, love the team. They're growing. Still, I'm not putting like title winners and Champions League winners expectations yet. That'll be probably for next year. It's kind of a long plan type thing, but very impressed, very gassed. I love them because all my other teams suck, so I can actually watch them win. So it's really a great time for me.
Okay, so Dan, I pulled up the Premier League standings here, and I'm seeing Tottenham and Liverpool are ahead of Chelsea. Which of those two teams do you think is more of a serious threat, like to Chelsea?
Definitely Liverpool, without a doubt. Tottenham, they started well, but it's a long season. They were I think they were 6th or 7th last year. They weren't even top 4. And I think they just have a hot start. I don't think they're going to last all year, in my opinion. Liverpool won it last year. Definitely injured and beat up, but they still have so many world class players, so many difference makers that they're known to be consistent. They have a great manager. I think they're going to win the league if we're being honest. But it's a wide open year. It's really exciting, actually.
Being a Premier League fan in general is interesting. I don't watch necessarily for a specific team, but I have watched certain teams. Like even watching Southampton, I don't know why, but I really enjoy watching Southampton play football. Mostly because Danny Ings is just, it just seems funny to me that Danny Ings is just out here grinding away like he's like one of the better players in the league. Because I just feel you look at Danny Ings, he's just like, yeah, he could be working at your local McDonald's, but instead he's a superstar. You know, literally exactly. Like you could walk outside of Old Trafford and go to a nearby bar, and he'd be like, "Hey, what do you want
He's
to
the
drink?"
bartender
So,
at a pub in
yeah,
England. Like,
if you look at Danny Ings, he's a good man. Obviously, he's grinding away. But we can move forward past Dan's bragging about Chelsea. Obviously, he's excited. He has every reason to be. And go to BK's question. This was asked to us about a week and a half ago, about a week ago. He's asking Dan specifically. I know you and the Audio Giants fans. Is it in their best interest to fight for that playoff spot, or would it be would a higher pick serve the team better in the long run? I think at this point, Dan and I will both establish that our opinions have changed a little bit as the season has went on, and I think it's probably better for them to make the playoffs at this point. But Dan, what are your thought process? What's your thought process here?
listen, if I wasn't locked in before, we just beat the Seahawks in Seattle, like with Colt McCoy. Like we're locked. We're in for the ride now. Whatever happens, and we're here for it. But I don't know. I just can't believe it because they were 1-5. Like I'll say that again. Like I really didn't expect anything. I was like, here we got worse. So I'm thinking like it's gonna be a freaking 3-13 season, and we're out now. So I don't know. I'm just along for the ride. I have nothing to really even. It doesn't make sense half the time, to be honest with you. It makes no sense. But I'm happy. I'm loving it.
See, I I almost think it's like a win-win now because like if they make the playoffs, hey, see a playoff game, they could win, and if they lose, it's like, oh, so we saw that they can actually play football. They're gonna get a high pick. If the Washington football team happens to win the division, props to them. Alex Smith, good man. Um, it's not like the Giants are winning the Super Bowl this year, and I think that I don't think there's any Giant fan out there that really believes that they're going to win the Super Bowl. If they do, you should stop. You're not right. You need to get mental help. Um, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe Ryan has a different opinion from the outside looking in. And looking at the Giants, do you think it would better suit them to make the playoffs, probably lose in the first round, or get a decently high pick that probably end up being about 9 or 10? I think at this point.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with both of you in terms of your mindset. I was thinking at the beginning of the year when they still had so many young players and they were kind of figuring it out. Still, Joe Judge, obviously very young in his coaching career. It maybe would have suited them better to add another top piece. But at this point, like Dan was saying, I mean, you just went on the road into Seattle and got a win. Like, I think a lot of their younger players are starting to play better. A lot of guys that Dave Gettleman went on and got, even going, maybe not necessarily their young players, but some of the veterans that he got, like James Bradbury, Blake Martinez, Logan Ryan, all those guys have had good seasons for the Giants. That defensive line, trading for Leonard Williams last year, re-signing him, drafting Dexter Lawrence. Some of those moves have really paid off for the Giants for some of the younger bodies on their defense. So they definitely done some good things, and you can see that Joe Judge is starting to settle in a little bit more comfortable as the season's going along. So I would say ride it out, try and compete for that playoff spot. And then since they're in the NFC East, they're obviously right in the thick of things, competing with Washington, who I think is also in a similar situation when it comes to first-year head coach and a pretty young roster. So that's kind of where I see the NFC East outlook, that it'll come down to either Washington or the Giants.
Which is fair, I think. Um, if you had told me at the beginning of the season that it was going to come down to Washington and the Giants, I would have told you, hey, lay off the drugs. Um,
Yeah, that's really shocking. Honestly, that is not what I expected. Even a few weeks into the season, I was thinking before the Dak injury, I was thinking it was going to be
yeah,
Philly
so
and
funny
Dallas.
enough, I went back and looked at somebody in ESPN writers' projections for the season. The Giants had a 2-win projection. Washington had a 3-win projection. Um, Obviously, outdoing these projections a little bit. Maybe a lot of help from the division being piss poor, but you can't really complain at this point. I think we can shift forward to Scotty G's questions. Who we always get Scotty G questions every single week. His first question is, if you could choose any current Sooner to be on your NFL team, who would you choose and why? Our RK already has one of his favorite Sooners on the team, but is there another person that you would rather have on your team that's not Jalen Hurts?
I mean, yeah, I was thinking Lane Johnson too. I mean, Eagles got a couple Sooners out there. So, but yeah, Jalen Hurts is the man. But yeah, I mean, obviously this question, I'm a big Kyler Murray guy. So, I mean, we answered this question first time we recorded. But yeah, I'm still taking Kyler Murray on the Eagles. I don't care. I would love to have Kyler Murray on my favorite team.
And Dan, I think we'll both agree that Kyler Murray is probably the one that we would like to have as well, considering the Giants would be a 7 or 8 win football team right now. That's shocking to think about, but if you put Kyler Murray on a team like the Giants, they may be a potential favorite. You know, maybe not exactly what we're looking for, what we were expecting to have out of this team this year. But if you put Kyler Murray on the Giants, maybe they're the favorite to win the NFC. Who knows?
Yeah, Kyler Murray is he's unbelievable. I mean, honestly, I think he would do bits with our offense, especially if we had Saquon. Like that'd be something to watch.
Yeah,
But
run and read option with Kyler and Saquon,
oh,
man, that would be deadly right there. Even
yeah,
Wayne Gallman, I think Wayne Gallman's had a good year. He's impressed me this year.
yeah. There's definitely a lot of weapons on the offense. Even like I wonder how good Kyler Murray would make Evan Engram if he decided to catch the ball.
Dan really hates Evan Engram, with reason. He's had a mediocre year. He's not very consistent, but he's a good man and he deserves our respect because he's just grinding it out. We'll shift over to another Scotty G question that is baseball related. And he asked us, where do we think Kyle Schwarber ends up considering he was not non-tendered by the Cubs? I think we just do a quick analysis of a couple top free agents, starting with Kyle Schwarber. RK, where do you think Kyle Schwarber is going to end up?
Yeah, we were talking about the DH issue earlier, so I mean, I guess I would plan for an American League team for Kyle Schwarber. It just seems like his skill set is probably best if he can have a majority role, at least as a hitter. How about Toronto? I think Toronto's going to be spending a lot of money. I think they definitely like their power hitters, so that's probably why I'd lean for Schwarber.
Yeah. I would just go White Sox just because one, he'd fit in general what they're doing, and two, they seem like a team that's kind of looking to make moves. They're definitely looking to transition and become like a good team. So because they already have a bunch of young players that have come up.
Yeah, if the
and
White
been really
Sox
good,
had
so
Eloy Jimenez and
I
Kyle
could see them
Schwarber,
getting
I
him
mean,
and
Theo Epstein
just
maybe he
adding
just
to
sits
the
out a
home
year
runs
and
they
goes
hit
back
anyway.
to the White Sox.
Maybe that's the plan. You never know. Um,
Yeah, it could be.
I thought that what we could do here is just rattle off
Honestly.
a quick couple of destinations for the top free agents in the MLB while we're here. Starting with George Springer. Do either of you have any thought process on where George Springer ends up?
I saw one thing from Jeff Passan that said he doesn't think he's going to the White Sox. So I know a lot of White Sox fans really want George Springer. So I'll say he resigns with Houston. I feel like he just kind of likes that core there. So that's my guess.
I'd say probably Toronto, maybe even like Boston. I don't know. You never know. Probably stays in the AL, in my opinion.
Which is a fair analysis, I think. Moving on, we have Trevor Bauer. Trevor Bauer, who's been rumored to every team in the MLB. Any thought process on where he actually ends up, and give me a quick reasoning why?
I I don't know if it's because he's messing with me because he literally trolls every single team, but I have like no read on this guy. I mean, I want to hear what you have to say because nothing stands out to me at the moment, to be honest with you.
I'll say the Phillies. That's kind of my guess. I feel like the Phillies always just kind of shell out money on like a random pitcher, and I think they're getting Dave Dombrowski, so new guy in the front office there. So that's what I'll say.
Funny enough, I was going to pick another NL East team and go with the Mets. I think what the Mets could do with Trevor Bauer would be so special. They would be throwing out high-end starters every single night. And although, they've spent money on a lot of bad starters recently, like Porcello and Waka, if you end up with Trevor Bauer behind DeGrom, and then you have a healthy Syndergaard and a healthy Stroman, like, maybe the Mets would really be legit for once. So you never know. But that was the only thing I could really think of there. Obviously, as Dan said, they troll every fan base every single time they possibly can, which is interesting considering I generally think of the agent job as being a more behind the scenes job than anything. And Trevor Bauer's agent is all in on the action. Trevor Bauer's agent is just trying to fuck around, and I really respect it at this point, honestly.
Why not? You only live life once.
I love Trevor Bauer. Trevor Bauer is an awesome person to root for. I feel like he's got some mixed opinions, but I've listened to a few podcasts with Trevor Bauer.
If people don't
so
like
I'm a
him,
big
it's because they
fan.
don't like people who actually show their personality. They just have to be
Yeah,
they have
voice
to be
their
just
own
baseball
opinion.
players.
Call out the Houston Astros for cheating and winning a World Series.
People just don't like personalities. They would rather them just play baseball. So
I will go with one more. I'll go with one more duo here. Dan, Tanaka and Paxton are both free agents. Do you see the Yankees bringing back either of them?
I hope they get one. I'd rather Tanaka, honestly. Paxton was honestly he's kind of a disaster this whole time as the Yankees, and Tanaka he's kind of up and down, but he's always consistently a pretty good pitcher. So I like him actually. I'd love to see Tanaka back. Paxton, I don't really care what they do with him. I mean,
Yeah, Paxton could never get out of the first
oh
inning.
my god, literally, you don't even know how painful it is knowing this guy. He has like a first inning curse. Every time he comes out, he gets either shelled in the first inning or just scrapes by. And it's like you get through the first though, you're flying. But first inning, forget it. 3-4 runs, especially against the Red Sox. Oh my god, it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. I'm over him. He could leave. I don't really care.
Yeah, see, that's what happened with Julio Urias last year. He had a 9 ERA in the first inning, and then after that, it was like a 1.8. So really don't understand how that one happens. But again, the mental process in baseball, especially with pitchers, is probably the biggest of any. And once you get settled in, everything's different. But yeah, I think that's good analysis that we haven't really had on the MLB, considering the MLB is quiet. As we've said, nothing. We don't really hear anything about anything. Period. Here's one more question that we discussed last podcast that we did not get to post because of technical issues. Why do you think the NHL isn't as popular as the other big four leagues, and why? Like, what reasoning exactly is there towards the NHL not being that popular? Go with RK first.
Yeah, we had a good discussion on this earlier, so I think there was a good amount of reasons that we outlined, but I think one of the big ones is just the fact that not as many Americans are as familiar with hockey or have had the background to play hockey when they are younger. I think kind of like the idea of like floor hockey, at least in like the Chicago area, like it's like a thing, like in like gym classes and things like that, but it's really not too common that people would play ice hockey. So it's not as common for people to get into those sports professionally. Like there's a reason why they don't have as great of a following. I think it's definitely growing. I think like I'm noticing more people are getting into hockey. I mean, maybe that's just by perception, I don't know, but I think just kind of the idea that more people are growing up and playing football and baseball and basketball than they are hockey is kind of one of the reasons that I look at there.
Yeah, again, we talked about it last time. If I want to play basketball, there's 5,000 hoops within my neighborhood. If I want to play soccer, there's nets everywhere. Even like baseball, I mean, you can go to Target and get like a few balls and like a cheap metal bat or something and just go and swing. And any school anywhere has a field for you. So hockey though, it's expensive. The gear is a lot of money. Leagues are a lot of money. Playing in high school, I know I did it. I'm thankful for my parents giving me the opportunity to play. The gear was over time probably over $1,000 easily in gear. And also I think there's a diversity issue. If you're like a black boy and you want to play hockey, like you don't have many idols at this point to look up to, which is a shame. And that there's a level there always is that in something. If you are a woman and you want to coach hockey, why would you even want to? Because there's no like precedent set now that you can even do that. So I think it comes down to a lot of things, but that's another huge one is lack of diversity in the sport in general.
Do you think that in general with the NHL, it's them not doing enough to grow the sport? Or do you think the sport is just not one that people are going to be interested in because of all those issues that we've listed already with gear being expensive? It's not a sport that you can necessarily play, so why would you watch it? Whereas basketball is always popular because everybody has already liked basketball, and all you need is a basketball and a hoop, and hoops are everywhere. Do you think it's an NHL thing, not being willing to grow the game or not doing enough to grow the game, or do you think it's just people are not receptive to the idea of hockey in general at this point?
I think that's definitely part of it. Like, I think there is an element to where the NHL could be doing a better job. Like, I guess we could say, oh, they have more teams in Canada than other leagues have. Like, you look at the MLB and the NBA, they just have one team in Toronto. So there's more teams in Canada. So that's kind of interesting. But at the same time, I feel like the NHL could be doing a better job in terms of where they're putting themselves. Like, really, if you want to watch the NHL on national TV, it's really just NBC. Well, then basketball, you have TNT and ESPN, or NFL, it's on all sorts of different networks: CBS, NBC, ESPN, Fox. So, like, I think the TV rights is another big part of it. Just the fact that the NHL is only really on one network. So, I think there's definitely a handful of reasons like that the NHL could be doing things better. So, I mean, yeah, I think that definitely is an element to what you bring up there, Donnie.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like for me, of course, there's a hurdle to overcome. They know they're behind. They know they're the fourth biggest sport. Maybe even in our lifetime could be fifth if the MLS keeps growing. But there's going to be a hurdle to overcome, and it's going to be a bit harder to market and spread. But it doesn't mean you can't try. And I think they do a pretty crap job in general promoting sport, promoting their players, and trying to spread hockey because like we can all acknowledge that it's definitely fourth best in this country, but doesn't mean there's no way to get it. The NBA is growing insanely. They've done an amazing job marketing the game, and I think it's going to continue to grow
and marketing their players. That's
Yeah.
kind of one thing you brought up there, Dan. Like everybody knows who LeBron James is and Patrick Mahomes, but I feel like I'll talk to a lot of my friends who are like not that big of hockey fans, and like they barely even know who like Connor McDavid or Steven Stamkos are.
I don't blame them, honestly. I don't see how they would know because I even we talked about this last time. There's a few commercials with like David Pastrnak on Dunkin' Donuts and stuff, but that's really just NBC during the games. Like I also don't watch a ton of TV, but I just don't feel like they market enough, and they don't encourage their players to have personalities and to show who they are and not be a robot. They encourage, it's like robot culture hockey. I don't understand it.
So if you want statistics behind these, there was a Market Watch study that was done in 2000 and then again done in 2016. And the average age of the hockey fan, the NHL fan in 2000 was 33. The average age of the hockey fan, so like the average viewer is in 2016 was 49. So they aged year by year for 16 years. Everybody aged, whereas other sports such as the MLB, over the 16 years, the average viewer was only aging by 5 years, so they were getting an influx of younger fans. Also, the same with the NFL; it only aged by 6 years. The NBA only aged by 2 years. So it looks as if in general, they're having an issue with both getting the fans to stick around when they start getting in younger and then finding those young fans and getting them interested in the sport. Because it's like you see with the NBA, over 16 years, the average viewer only grew by 2 years, which is maybe a testament to the NBA actually doing a good job marketing their players. But the NHL, the average viewer in 2000 was the same average viewer in 2016. It's the same person, just a little bit older. So they haven't done their due diligence to actually go dig into maybe inner cities and such to really get the younger generation into the sport in general, which I think that's probably a death sentence, if anything, for a sport. Let's say in 30 or 40 years, if they don't do a good job, the average age of the viewer is going to be in their 60s or 70s, and that's where you go for like the PGA Tour or horse racing. That's where their average fan is. Um, I can't necessarily guarantee that the NHL's average fan is going to be 60, 65, 70 years old. However, it doesn't look like they are grasping the younger generation well, whereas sports like the NBA and the NFL and even sports like college football has got the best numbers of any of them on this page. Um, and that's an interesting aspect of things that people don't really understand, I think, is the NHL must just not do a good job in at all in terms of the like younger fans and the younger fan base, which is I don't know, maybe scary for the average NHL fan like us three, because the sport is going to keep maybe declining or it's going to die off at some point. It's going to have issues with revenue. The fans will start to age and then not have any interest, and then the younger fans won't be interested either. Um, I don't know. I don't know how necessarily you fix this, but I think the NHL has got a real problem.
Yeah, I definitely think, especially looking at the MLS, which is probably the one sneaking up on it. Soccer is such a diverse sport with so many different countries involved. Like America is a very diverse country, of course. There's going to be so many fans that are going to get into the MLS, and it's going to keep growing because the MLS. I didn't even realize this. It was founded like 1992. That was a year ago. Like that's what it was not long ago. Compared to the NHL, MLB, and NFL, they've been around for hundreds of years. The MLS is maybe what 30 years old, so it's going to grow and it's going to over. I really think it's going to overtake it in our lifetime because America is a very diverse country, and soccer is a big international thing. So I think they could be in trouble if they don't at least put some more effort in.
Yeah, I had one more follow up question before we wrap it up here with the NHL and with the MLS in mind. So most of the other sports have some sort of major market that or major media. It's like a television channel that plays their games. So for example, the NBA takes advantage of having ESPN and ABC, and then you have the NFL is on multiple major cable networks. And then the NHL is on primarily, I'd say NBC Sports is the main shower of games across America. Do you think that's an issue at all? The fact that they don't have any real need to have any support from the ESPN, like ESPN doesn't support them, and then it's NBC Sports, which is just basically a knockoff sports channel, whereas all the others are on like ABC, NBC, channels like that. Do you think that has anything to do with it?
I think so. I think it just kind of limits the exposure that people have to hockey. Like it's less common that someone will just be somewhere. It could even be out at like a bar or wherever this a restaurant. Like there's less likely a chance that they will just see hockey on the TV and be exposed to it.
That's true. If you don't have certain networks, and they're always going to have the NBCs, ABCs, all those channels. That's what the NBA is on, the NFL is on. So they're always going to be on the TV at a bar or Buffalo Wild Wings or something. NHL, I mean, listen, whenever I go to eat at Buffalo Wild Wings, I almost always have to ask them to put it on because it's usually not on as is, which is depressing, but it's my life, I guess.
Yeah, I thought in general. So it's interesting. ESPN used to have a lot of NHL games, and they used to have the market, and then they got basically outbid for the NHL rights. And now to watch an NHL game, you either have to have the package or you watch. I think they probably show games 3 nights a week because they did Wednesday night rivalry night and the weekends. 3 or 4 nights a week you have a game, and generally it's not the team that you want to watch. Whereas in the NBA, you're going to be able to see your team most of the time, and I think in the NFL has a rule where you have to have. Every team has a game that's prime time at some point throughout the season. I could be wrong with that. Ryan might be able to help out.
Yeah, I
there.
believe that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah, but the NHL is literally you could go an entire season watching the NBC sports games and not see the team that you want to watch. Like I think that's shocking.
Yeah, they're brutal with the scheduling and the teams they choose
Yeah.
and some of the rivalries.
It was so clear
which
that
were
they were just picking it
ridiculous
based on the
teams.
market instead of the quality of the game.
Oh, of course, which hurts you. They're trying to be big brain, but in the end, I think that hurts you because you're putting poor quality product on the ice on the TV.
It's really interesting to me in general to have this conversation because you're always going to come up with something new and there's always going to be something different that you didn't think about previously. But yeah, I think we can move on to our very final question that came from Josh at I Hate Lettuce 2. We had to discuss something that Josh asked because he asked us questions about beavers and running water and Sierra Miss Cranberry. But I just want to hear everybody's opinion on your favorite SpongeBob episode, considering he said Shanghai is the undisputed best SpongeBob episode out there. Obviously, we talked about this last week, but Dan, start with you. What's your favorite SpongeBob episode ever?
That's a tough one, but I'll throw a great one out there. I just thought of it now. The one where he's trying to take the trash out and he keeps running back and forth, and then they write on the trash can, "Squidward smells good." If you know, you know. That's all I gotta say. That's a classic. Love that episode. I think it's the Hashling Slasher episode.
Hashling, that is the Hashling Slasher episode. Absolutely.
Yeah, that I would take that one.
Yeah,
honestly.
I was actually in agreement with you. Actually, that's funny enough. RK, what do you got?
Yeah,
here?
I mean, I don't know. Josh going undisputed with his best choice of SpongeBob episode. There's a lot of good SpongeBob episodes, okay? So it's definitely disputed. I think that's one thing we can all agree with. But my favorite
it's absolutely
SpongeBob
disputed.
episode is not even close. It's the chocolate with nuts episode when there's the old lady and she just goes, "Chocolate!" That's just literally the greatest SpongeBob episode of all time. So that's my choice. But at the same time, I'm willing to acknowledge that it could be disputed. So there's my disagreement with Josh.
Definitely classics. I was just thinking, like, how much time would you have to spend to watch every SpongeBob episode, like all the classics?
It's been done. There are some people I know
really
that like they're like,
time.
yes, I have seen every SpongeBob episode, and like it's like a competition.
Oh,
Like
I
there's
need
a
to
few
look this
shows
up
like
now.
that. Like The Office, that's another show.
Yeah,
Scotty
I'm
G,
just-
listener, he's one of those people for The Office. But like there's some like competitive SpongeBob like knowledge people. So
It says 120
so-
hours for everything.
Oh my god, I was gonna say it's got to be at least 60.
It's gonna be a
hours.
fun
I was
winter
gonna say
break, boys.
120
Let's go.
hours. Holy. And does SpongeBob still make new episodes, or is that done?
Probably. Let's
I
be
think
real.
they make new.
I'm thinking
they
they
make
probably
new
do
episodes
too, but
still.
I couldn't tell you. I have no idea.
Let me see.
Yeah, we're doing live research on the podcast for you, the
SpongeBob.
viewer, about SpongeBob, just to make sure that you know and that you're prepared.
Let's see the newest episode.
No, they literally have October 22nd,
no.
2020 was the last episode. There were two season
Okay, good.
13. No, they're still making more ones. They just haven't announced. They haven't released them yet. Yeah. So they are
Season-
still.
We need
Yeah,
SpongeBob on like
season 12 it
HBO.
says.
Like I want
Props to
like
them, man.
HBO SpongeBob.
Props to
That'd be
them.
hilarious.
Sure.
I
Sure.
don't even know what that means, but we're just gonna go.
It's like Hard Knocks. It's
I'm
like
thinking
Hard
the
Knocks
burger-
with
the burger
SpongeBob.
Ryan
That's what I
Behind
was
the
Ryan
scenes.
is
thinking.
going
They should do
his
behind
head.
the scenes. with SpongeBob,
Yeah,
honestly.
yeah, mic'd up. I want SpongeBob mic'd up.
Mic'd up. Okay.
Mike, all right. I think we've reached a point of no return here, so I think it's about time to outro us out.
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
Ryan,
I got to
give us the
acknowledge
outro
Dan.
here.
I know we trolled at the beginning, but Dan, obviously, shout out to you, obviously, for coming on. I mean, Dan's a good man. Dan's one of Donnie and I's best friends in our group chat. We play a lot of Xbox together, so it's good stuff. Really appreciate having Dan on. Huge Devils fan. We're gonna give Dan a lot of shit for the Devils being trash. We do that enough anyways, so definitely wanted to bring that up. Same with Rutgers. Rutgers also sucks, Dan. So sorry, just shitting on all your New Jerseyness right there, but I had to. So shout out to everybody for listening, though. You are now an end of the podcast, folk. That's what this means because you listen through the entire podcast. There's no way you could be listening this without listening through the entire podcast. So shout out to you, obviously, great listener. Follow us on social media at Roth Podcast, Rody on the Horn. That's where that comes from. ROTH we will give you a follow back. We'd love to interact with you, hear what you want to talk about. We answer your questions as you listen to in this podcast. Talk a lot about sports. We talk about a lot about other stuff. So it's really good stuff. We appreciate you being along with us for this journey, being along with us to listen to our friend Dan. We'll have Dan back on soon. Dan, obviously, anytime you want to come back, you're more than welcome on. So we definitely appreciate you coming on.
Well, you're a good man, and it's kind of my fault. I've been on in a while, but I also just
You're
recently
grinding
got
now.
the equipment for it,
absolutely.
so I'm happy. I'm a grinding man, absolutely. I'm ready for the future of great podcasts.
You want to plug your
and,
Twitter,
other
Devil's Red
things,
Alert,
yeah.
anything else here, Dan?
Listen, if you're a Devils fan, you follow me already. I'm kidding. That's such a cocky thing to say.
Yeah,
At Devils
you're
Red
3,000
Alert.
followers. We get it.
That's almost 2, and I'm proud of that. And I have every right to be. At Devils Red Alert on Twitter. Hi, that's me.
He also may be starting a soccer podcast at some point. We really don't know about that one. We'll definitely tweet it out on our Twitter if it ever.
Definitely a career high episode for Soccer Talk in this one. So
I'll absolutely. It is a career low for Sheck West Talk. Sheck,
it is.
We need you on here. Let's go figure it out. I know Sheck is currently training for a basketball season in France.
He is.
So,
yep. Even though Rody on the Horn drafted him first, people forget.
Yeah, I don't know how that happened. Obviously, they don't respect us as a drafting entity, and I don't appreciate it. But again, thank everybody just for sending questions in, for listening, for dealing with us being delayed because of bad technical issues.
I put my hand up. I'm at fault
Arcade
here.
audio was stinky last week. It's fine. Dan's audio was sent to me in Japanese.
Not my
I don't know
fault.
I don't know.
But I'll take the L on that.
Yeah. But thank you everybody for listening, and we will talk to you again next week.
Peace, everybody.
Bye, Bobby.